Major developments this morning involving two wars. Firstly, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has spoken to our colleagues at Fox in the US and confirmed Israel was pursuing a full military invasion of Gaza. Secondly, a potential meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin could take place in the UAE as early as next week. Joining us live now is retired US Navy Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery, who has just returned from a visit to Taiwan, which we'll also talk about this morning as well. Sir, it's good to see you again. Let's just start with your experience. I want to ask you about Gaza and your thoughts on whether it's necessary for Israel to fully occupy Gaza militarily, bearing in mind that Israel already holds about 60% of the strip, as I understand.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Gaza's going to be tough. I spent a lot of time in Israel and been there 3 or 4 times this year, and I will say that it is the Israeli army cannot be comfortable with this assignment. Where they're going to occupy is where now the 35% they don't hold now and that they will hold are where the hostages are. So there's a potential for knocking out the, for causing a collateral damage deaths to the hostages. And I just think this is going to put a stress on the Israeli army, particularly, that they're not ready for.
Right. So, I mean, there's the below-ground stuff you talked about too, the tunnels where the fighters are hiding, the hostages, like you say, it's booby-trapped as well. That's not easy to clear. Would you be advising against this sort of decision, Mark?
I would be. I think we're at the point now where Netanyahu needs to cut the best deal he can with Saudi Arabia and UAE, United Arab Emirates, and Egypt deeply involved, and try to rebuild Gaza with a different Palestinian leadership. And there is no good solution here, but probably full occupation by the IDF is the least good solution.
Okay, let's go to this other war, the Trump-Putin meeting that could happen in the UAE next week. Mark, what realistically comes out of it? Because Russia, as we know, won't give an inch if he doesn't have to.
Well, you're exactly right. I'm concerned about this. I thought Trump had finally maneuvered himself into a position where he was going to take the appropriate actions, some mix of sanctions on the secondary recipients of shadow fleet fossil fuels, oil and natural gas. That's India and China. I thought he was going to do that. I thought he'd provide more defensive weapons, or at least allow Europe and Ukraine to buy more, and then finally potentially provide offensive weapons to Ukraine. Instead, we're right back at the, we'll talk with my good friend Vladimir, and he just needs to remind himself what Melania apparently tells him every night, which is that, when you're done talking with Putin, he sends 500 drones into Kiev or Odessa or someplace else, and that's who Trump needs to realize he's dealing with, not the creature across the table from him.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's see where that lands. I just want to get you on Taiwan, having been there myself. You spoke to the president, though. You've spoken to military commanders. You've just returned. What did you learn after that trip, Mark?
Well, first of all, they're doing a good job getting ready. They're spending more on defense. They're approaching 3% this year. They'll get it next year. Then they'll go to 4% and 5%. They're somewhat hamstrung by the fact that only the United States will sell them weapons, but they're doing what they can. They're also training well, but they need more exercises with the United States and then hopefully willing partners like Japan and Australia. That's what Taiwan needs next, so that we deter China instead of having to defeat China.
Yeah, if it were to happen, though, if China were to make a move, Taiwan would be quite simply overrun, and quite quickly, I would have thought. If it's on its own, the trouble for Xi Jinping will be Taiwan's backup, the US, possibly us as a form of American allies as well. So what help could we do quickly?
Well, a few years from now, you could provide your AUKUS-provided submarines up there, and the sooner that Australia says that they are committed to that kind of action,
they might be a long way off.
They might be, but the sooner Australia says they're ready to do that, I think the better we can get to a locked-in AUKUS deal, I hope. But listen, on the very specific thing is they're going to need to hold out. The center of gravity in a conflict is the Taiwan army holding off a Chinese lodgment, and then the other center of gravity is the U.S. Air Force and Navy, relieving pressure on Taiwan. All those things need to be properly invested in. Those kind of investments, so submarines in the United States, aircraft, strike craft, and then good ground forces in Taiwan. If those investments are made, China will be deterred.
Okay. Good to see you again, Mark. Thanks for your time. We'll chat again soon.